Most Americans hear Venezuela and think it's a distant political headline that has nothing to do with their daily life. But events unfolding there can quietly affect your gas prices, your grocery bill, your investments, your taxes, and even the job market in ways most people never connect. Today, I want to break this down clearly. No politics, no fear-mongering. Just how this situation could ripple through the U.S. economy and what you should actually pay attention to as an everyday American. Think of the global economy like a giant interconnected highway system. You might be driving on a perfectly smooth road in Georgia or California, but if there's a major accident on a key highway, traffic slows everywhere. Venezuela happens to sit on one of the most important energy highways in the world. Venezuela has some of the largest oil reserves on the planet. Not production, reserves. That distinction matters. Reserves are like having a massive warehouse full of goods. Production is how fast you can actually ship them out the door. Venezuela's production has been low for years due to mismanagement, sanctions, and political instability. But even when production is low, instability alone affects prices. Oil markets don't wait for problems to happen. They price in risk ahead of time. When there's uncertainty around a major oil-holding country, traders build that uncertainty into prices immediately. That's why even rumors or political tension can move oil prices before a single barrel is lost. And oil prices matter more than most people realize. Oil is not just gasoline. It affects shipping, airlines, manufacturing, plastics, fertilizer, food transportation, and retail prices. When oil goes up, costs quietly rise everywhere. When oil stabilizes or falls, inflation pressure eases. This is where Americans feel it first. Gas prices. Even a small move matters. A jump of 50 cents per gallon doesn't sound dramatic, but over a year that can mean hundreds or thousands more per household, especially for families with long commutes or multiple vehicles. Now zoom out a bit. The U.S. is one of the world's largest oil producers. That's a huge advantage. It means we're less vulnerable than we were 20 years ago. But less vulnerable doesn't mean immune. Oil is priced globally. Even if we produce a lot domestically, global instability still influences prices here. So the first thing Americans should watch is energy prices, not headlines. If oil spikes sharply and stays elevated, that can slow consumer spending. When people spend more at the pump, they spend less elsewhere. Restaurants, retail, travel, and entertainment all feel that squeeze. That's how a foreign political situation quietly becomes a domestic economic issue. Now, let's talk about inflation, because this is where things get personal. Inflation is like a leak in your wallet. You don't notice it immediately, but over time it drains your purchasing power. Energy-driven inflation is especially tricky because it feeds into everything else. Higher fuel costs raise shipping costs. Higher shipping costs raise retail prices. Higher prices keep inflation sticky. Sticky inflation makes it harder for interest rates to come down. And interest rates affect mortgages, car loans, credit cards, and business borrowing. This is the chain reaction most people miss. If global instability keeps inflation elevated, the Federal Reserve is more cautious about cutting rates. That means borrowing stays expensive longer. Homebuyers stay sidelined. Businesses delay expansion. Hiring slows. That's not a crash scenario. That's a slow burn pressure scenario. Now let's talk markets, because this is where emotions usually take over. Historically, U.S. stock markets do not collapse because of isolated geopolitical events. Markets care more about earnings, interest rates, and economic growth. But geopolitical tension does increase volatility. Volatility means sharper swings. That can feel scary, but it also creates opportunity. Long-term investors tend to win by staying disciplined during uncertainty. Short-term traders tend to get chopped up by headlines. Warren Buffett has said repeatedly that geopolitical fear creates noise, not long-term value destruction, unless it fundamentally changes economic productivity. That perspective matters. But certain sectors do feel more impact. Energy companies can benefit from higher oil prices. Transportation companies can feel pressure. Defense stocks often see short-term attention during global tension. Gold sometimes gets attention as a psychological safe haven. The key word is psychological. Most of these moves are driven by sentiment first, fundamentals second. Now let's talk about jobs and the US economy more broadly. If energy prices stay elevated for long periods, it can slow economic growth. Slower growth means companies become more cautious. Hiring slows. Wage growth cools. That doesn't mean mass layoffs, but it does mean fewer opportunities and slower momentum. On the flip side, US energy production and infrastructure investment can increase. That creates jobs domestically. It's one reason energy-producing states often benefit during global supply disruptions. This is why economic impact is rarely one-directional. Some areas feel pain. Others see opportunity. Now let me pause here and ask you a question, because I want you thinking like an informed participant, not a spectator. When you hear global political tension, what worries you more? Rising prices, market volatility, or job security? Drop your answer in the comments. Your answer says a lot about where your financial exposure really is. Now let's talk about what Americans should actually do with this information, because awareness without action is just anxiety. First, watch inflation signals, not social media panic. Energy prices, CPI trends, and interest rate guidance matter far more than headlines. Second, protect your cash. High-yield savings accounts matter in environments where uncertainty lingers. When inflation is elevated, earning 4% to 5% on cash is not optional. It's defensive strategy. Third, avoid emotional investing decisions. Markets have survived wars, oil shocks, political upheaval, and recessions. Panic selling locks in losses. Long-term discipline lets compounding work. Fourth, manage debt carefully. High interest rates plus instability is a bad mix. Variable rate debt becomes more dangerous. Fixed rate manageable debt is more predictable. Fifth, focus on flexibility. Flexibility is underrated. Emergency funds, diversified income streams, and low fixed expenses give you options. Options reduce stress. Ray Dalio often talks about understanding cause and effect rather than predicting events. You don't need to know exactly what will happen in Venezuela. You need to understand how energy, inflation, rates, and growth interact. That's the real advantage. Now zoom out to the big picture. The American economy is resilient. It adapts. It shifts. It absorbs shocks better than most. But resilience doesn't mean zero impact. It means impact is uneven, gradual, and manageable for those who prepare. This situation is not about panic. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that global events influence your financial life even if they happen thousands of miles away. And the people who do best financially are not the ones who predict the future perfectly. They're the ones who build systems that work across many futures. If this video helped you understand how global events connect to your money, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still thinks geopolitics doesn't affect them. Because the goal isn't fear. The goal is clarity. And clarity leads to better decisions, no matter what the headlines say tomorrow.